has been some crummy weather this weekend. I'm hoping that the quiet stays for a little bit because it's been thundering and lightning all day, so fingers crossed. But let's go ahead and just get started. So thank you for joining me for What's Happening This Week, where I tell you some of the fun things that are happening around the world. Now, obviously, this is an exhaustive list, so if there's something that I missed, please feel free to let me know, either in the comments or you can contact me through any of my socials. And I will make sure I add it to the list for next year so I don't miss it again. But first, if this is your first journey with me, hi, I'm Gretchen, the Tipsy Travel Gal. I'm a travel agent and a licensed esthetician, and my goal is to eat, drink, and spa my way around the world, bringing you with me. My goal is to show you some really cool places, different things to eat and drink, some fun things to do, and hopefully inspire you to travel along the way, whether that be domestic or international travel. If that sounds like fun to you, please consider subscribing to my channel. I would truly appreciate it. But let's go ahead and get started because there is a lot going on this week, and I mean a lot. So we're going to start with Canada, more specifically Quebec, more specifically Montreal, where the Festival International des Jazz is currently running all the way through July the 8th. Now, this festival holds the Guinness World Record for being the largest jazz festival on the planet. There are 150 indoor concerts, 350 outdoor concerts, and it truly reflects Montreal's nightlife and jazz community. It's right downtown in the Place des Festivals, and they actually reconfigure the entire area to suit specifically the jazz festival to give it a very unique feel. Now, if you've never been to Canada in the summer, I highly recommend it. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's warm, but it doesn't get terribly hot. It's actually quite lovely. So if you feel like going to Montreal for some great jazz, food, fun, this is the week to do it. Now, obviously, the big thing in the United States is the 4th of July, which is happening on Tuesday. Now, some of the biggest fireworks are in Washington, D.C., the fireworks on the Potomac. Now, one of the better places to see the fireworks, and of course the most popular, is the National Mall itself. Now, if you're headed that way, make sure that you get there early and you make yourself aware of all the road closures, entry points, what you can and can't take into the National Mall. Obviously, it will have heightened security, so just check the website before you head out so you know what you can and can't take with you. Now, there are other places to actually view the fireworks. You can do it across the Potomac in Virginia. There are river cruises that run, and last I checked, there are still some seats on the boats left. There is Embark DC Tours, there's city cruises, there is C-Suite cruises. And from what I could see, they still have some seats left. So that is definitely a viable option if you feel like enjoying the fireworks from the Potomac itself. There is a plethora of rooftop bars in Washington, D.C. Now, it's important that if you're planning on going to one of these bars, you make sure that you check to see if you need reservations, if there's a cover charge, if you have to pay for a table. A lot of those things will apply when you're dealing with big events, especially events that involve watching fireworks, which being on a rooftop would be definitely an advantageous spot to see it. A couple of notes, there's the View Rooftop Lounge, which is on top of Hotel Washington. There is the Summit Rooftop, which is on top of the Conrad Hotel. There's Top of the Gate, which is on top of the Watergate Hotel. There's the Lady Bird, which is on top of the Kimpton Banneker Hotel. And City Bar, which is on top of the Hyatt Place, Washington, D.C. Now, it's probably too late to do this, but if you're kind of keeping track to see what you can do next year, you can always get a hotel room that overlooks the National Mall. Now, keep in mind, most of those rooms are going to be at a premium charge. So you can't book like a regular room and expect to have one overlooking the National Mall. You're usually going to have to book it that way. And again, it's going to cost more money. Also, rooms aren't necessarily assigned until you get to the hotel. I would recommend getting it at least a couple days in advance and checking in early to make sure that you got the room that you want and the view that you want. Obviously, the higher the floor, the better you're going to be. Some recommendations: the Hay Adams, JW Marriott Washington, D.C., and the Salamander, D.C. All of them have great views of the National Mall that you'll be able to see the fireworks from. Quite possibly, from your bed, you don't even have to get dressed. Now, the highest point in Washington, D.C., which actually does overlook the National Mall, is the Washington National Cathedral. So you can always head over that direction, stake out a nice place on the side of the hill, and watch from there. Also on July 4th is obviously everybody's favorite eating competition, Nathan's Famous Hot Dog Eating Contest. Held on Coney Island in Brooklyn in front of their original storefront. About 35,000 people will show up to watch this, so you might want to get there early to stake out a spot. Now, the eating contest starts around 11 a.m. and the fireworks start about 9:30 p.m. So you're going to need to kill some time. So be prepared to be out in the sun all day and make sure you map out different ways to keep cool in the event that it's really warm. Ooh, and the rain and thunder and lightning has picked up again. Hopefully it won't be too bad. I am slightly concerned though. Moving on. Also on July 4th is the Music City Hot Chicken Festival. And if you haven't guessed where that's at, it's Nashville. Yes, Nashville's favorite dish has its own day. The festival is held in East Park. Kicks off with a parade at 11 and then it just continues all day. Some of the top establishments, the best known establishments, come and cook their chicken all day, as well as smaller vendors. There is plenty of beer. Cheers. There's also live music and an amateur cooking competition. So a great place to spend July 4th, especially if you love yourself some hot chicken, because that's the place to get it, that's for sure. Now, finishing up on July 4th, it's actually currently underway, is the Teton Valley Balloon Rally. It is a balloon festival against the Grand Teton Mountain. It draws balloon pilots from all over the country, and it has fireworks, a rodeo, a parade. It's just a great festival that includes a lot of hot air balloons. Now, if there's bad weather, they won't go up, but sometimes they'll still inflate or they'll fire, but they just won't leave the ground so everybody can see the balloons. There are balloon rides you can pay for. The tickets were relatively inexpensive, and so were the balloon rides. Also, there is a camping lot, so you can camp there next to the launch side of the balloons and kind of watch them come and go, which is pretty cool. It's also on the backdrop of some pretty amazing mountains. So not really a camper, but I do love some hot air balloons. Now, starting on July 6th and running through the 14th is the San Fermin Festival. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, I've never heard of the San Fermin Festival. And yes, you have, because it's held in Pamplona, Spain, and includes the running of the bulls. Now, I was unaware of the fact that they do the running of the bulls every day during the festival, which this festival runs 24/7 for 8 days. Like, it is a party. There's dances, street parties, parades, traditional folklore events. It's crazy, but every day they do the running of the bulls. Now, the running of the bulls starts on day 2, so it starts on July the 7th. Now, the running of the bulls is there are 6 Spanish bullfighting bulls, so the ones that actually participate in the bullfighting, and 6 steer. They run from the Corrales de Santo Domingo to Plaza de Toros, which is the bullfighting ring. So 1 million people usually show up for this. I'm anticipating it's even going to be higher this year because everybody's finally getting to get out and travel. So I kind of feel like this is going to be a huge event for them this year. It costs nothing to participate in the running of the bulls. All right. Although the smart choice would be to view it safely from the balconies. So there is actually a website that you can go reserve balcony viewpoints so you could watch the bulls chasing people as you run by, which I'll admit, I'm really curious about that, mostly because I would be rooting for the bulls. Did a little research on how safe it was to actually run this, and they said that the danger is actually pretty low and the chances of death are slim. And then they went into descriptions about what could cause death during the running of the bulls, and they got quite graphic. So, like I said, I root for the bulls, run it at your own risk. Me personally, I would watch it from a balcony and cheer on the bulls, but, you know, to each his own. Moving on. Another event that has cows and bulls is the Calgary Stampede. This runs from July 7th through the 16th. And I'll be honest with you, the thing I really want to see is the chuck wagon racing, because that looks like a lot of fun. There's also a rodeo, a concert, a huge fair. It's meant to educate and entertain, to preserve and celebrate the Western heritage. And by that, I'm assuming they mean the trek out west. There are some free days. The parades are free. And there's a pancake breakfast. Ooh. I love a good pancake breakfast. I'm just wondering around the scale of a pancake breakfast for something that's like a citywide event. That would be pretty extensive, I feel. Now, you can buy tickets for specific events. So like if you want to go to the chuck wagon races, or you want to go see the rodeo or things like that. Or you can buy a Stampede Super Pass. And it gives you full access to all the events for the entire length of the Calgary Stampede. Now, I was very curious as to, what something like that would cost. And I was very wary as I clicked the button, knowing how some of the festivals, especially the music festivals in the United States, their all day or all event passes were in the thousands. It was $51.45. Well, probably Canadian, but still. That's a really good price for essentially 9 days of parties, rodeos, fairs, concerts. Again, Canada in the summer, absolutely gorgeous. Calgary is in the province of Alberta, and it's actually not far from Banff National Park, which is absolutely amazing. Next up, we move to South America. Now, the Cano Cristales is a river that runs through the Serranía de la Macarena mountain range in Colombia. And it's really cool. The flowers bloom in the water, and so it makes the water look colored, but it's actually clear water. I don't even know how to describe it, and I'm sure the pictures don't do it justice. But it's all these vibrant colors that you can actually swim in. You can swim in the water. Now, technically, they start blooming from May and run through November, but the best time to see them is at their peak once, the bulk of them have bloomed, and that usually starts around July, and they start dwindling off in October. It's recommended to come earlier in the season because there's less people, although July in Colombia is probably going to be a hot one. Just thinking off the top of my head. Now, to see this, you need to be in decent shape because you're going to be hiking to this location. A lot of unstable terrain. There's a lot of river rocks that can be slippery. There's also riverbeds that you're going to have to traverse. You're going to get wet. You're going to need to have the proper equipment to dry on, dry off. You're also going to have to pack in and pack out. They recommend getting the yellow fever vaccine to go to this area. This is a protected site. It has a very fragile ecosystem, so they have a lot of rules as to what you can and can't do there. So, for example, I'm putting my drink down for this. There is no sunscreen. The sunscreen can wash off. If you're in the pools, it can wash off in the water and kill the flora that's in the water. Number 2, no insect repellents. Same reason. Even more damaging to the flowers that are in the water. Number 3, no plastic water bottles. Yeah, I don't know how you're going to get water up there, but you can't take them with you if you bring them. And last but not least, no cigarettes. So if you're a smoker, you better plan on giving it up for 4 days because you cannot take cigarettes with you. And if you think that you might be able to sneak a few, yeah, see, that area used to be a point of contention in drug wars and things like that. So once they saw the potential for it to be a tourist area, yeah, it's now very heavily guarded. So it's very safe, but there's always police around and park rangers to make sure that no one misbehaves. So don't say I didn't warn you. Now, there are hotels in the area, but they're very rustic. They do have water and plumbing, but the website for this area said most of them don't have hot water, so plan on roughing it. Now, moving on to another location in Colombia. So it is whale watching season. In Gorgona Island, you will see quite the show. Gorgana Island is off the coast of Colombia into the Pacific, where it is currently humpback whale season. Now, humpback whale season runs usually from July through October. It is when the humpbacks come from the South Pole, make their way up to here to mate and give birth to their calves. Now, there are tours to this area that include whale watching cruises. It is still very remote. There's no fishing allowed in the area, so it's kind of got its own little like Galapagos Island ecosystem type of area here. On the island itself, there's monkeys, exotic birds, lots of lizards. Now, all of that being said, traveling to Gorgana Island would be an interesting trip. First of all, the island is full of poisonous snakes. Like, a lot of poisonous snakes. As in, that's how it got its name. In fact, when you get there with a tour, and from what I understand, you could only go with a tour, but when you get there with a tour, they will give you rubber knee-high boots to protect yourself from snake bites. And give you traction, but mostly the snake bites. It got its name from the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro, he was on his way to conquer Peru, and they happened to stop over in Gorgana Island, and he lost so many men to snake bites, he named it Gorgana after the Spanish word gorgon, which is a mythical female creature that has snakes for hair, and she's essentially deadly. So that should give you an idea of how many snakes are on this island. Now, it was actually uninhabited until 1960, and that was when the Colombian government decided to put a prison on it. The prison was supposed to be unescapable, but one of the things that they did was they farmed timber. So the prisoners were farming the timber and then fashioning rafts out of it. And if they could make it past the snakes and get their rafts out on open water, you know, a couple of them actually made it to land. Now, the ones that made it to land were usually automatically caught, and several of them were killed in prison. What a happy story. Oh yeah, I also forgot, it's also not just snake infested, but it's got like shark infested waters. So it's not like you could like swim your way to safety. Yeah, there's lots of sharks there. Which, interestingly enough, they were like, oh, it's an amazing ocean ecosystem. It's great for snorkeling and scuba diving. And I'm like, and then they were like, yeah, it's also shark infested. And I'm like, wait, how is that good for scuba? If you're looking for a true adventure and you're not afraid of snakes or sharks, yeah, I think it would probably be quite interesting. I'm not sure if I'm up for that challenge. No. I mean, if there were spiders on top of it, yeah, that would seal the fate. I'm okay with snakes to a certain extent. But yeah, I don't know. I would have to be pretty intoxicated to agree to that, I think. Moving on. The next thing is something that if you have ever dreamed of going on safari or going to Africa, this one should be on your bucket list. And that is the Great Masai Mara Migration. That is when 2 million wildebeests, zebras, gazelles, and a whole bunch of other herbivores make their way from the Serengeti in Tanzania all the way to Masai Mara in Kenya. They do this to eat the tall grass, and then they eventually go back. Now, the season runs from July to October, and when you go is when you're going to see different things. Now, in July is when the herds gather and leave the Serengeti, which would be a pretty amazing sight. However, once they start to reach the Mara River, there are crocodiles that are waiting for them. And they're like lemmings. They all just follow each other, and they have to like leap across water to keep away from the crocodiles in the shallows. So, man, crocs, they're jerks, right? The dangerous journey is not over, because in August, they are basically reaching Masai Mara, and they are in Kenya, which of course, where the big cats are waiting for them. Lions, leopards, cheetahs, yeah, they love to munch on some wildebeest and some zebras. So they're very excited for their arrival. There's also a lot of elephants there as well, but you know, they're not the ones who are hunting the animals that are migrating. spend most of September just kind of chilling out, relaxing on the plains, eating the grass, hanging out. And then they begin their journey back in October, back to the Serengeti. Basically, once the rain starts to fall, that's their cue to head home. So like I said, there's 2 places to safari. That's in Tanzania in the Serengeti and Masai Mara in Kenya. I'd have to look to see if there are any safari groups that take you between the 2, but either place, it would be pretty doggone amazing to see that going on. So that's it for this week. There's, just a couple things going on. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to my channels. Also, I am the Tipsy Travel Gal on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. On my social media channels, I like to put out a lot of travel inspiration with a lot of pictures and photos, so definitely something to follow me there. I can be reached either by commenting here, you can go to my website, tipsytravelgal.com, or any of my socials, you can message me there and I will get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.